I was out of town on business when the text hit my phone. Your electricity bill is past due. I stared at the screen, confused as hell. Our bill this month was through the roof. But Emily and I had both been gone for weeks. The apartment should have been empty. I opened the power company app and checked the daily usage. Sure enough, power was being consumed every single day. And not just a little. It looked like someone was running the AC around the clock. I called Emily. Hey, babe. When are you coming home? Her sweet voice came through the line. Probably not until next week. It's been raining nonstop in Seattle. So our project got delayed. Miss me already? I told her I did. But my fingers were already booking a flight home for tomorrow morning. My project had wrapped up early anyway. And I decided not to mention anything to her just yet. The high electricity bill had me spooked. I immediately pulled up the August app for our smart lock. I was worried someone had broken in. But when I checked the access logs, there was nothing. In the past 2 weeks, the lock hadn't been opened once. I tried to think of other explanations. Maybe a neighbor had somehow tapped into our electrical line. But we lived in Riverside Estates, an upscale gated community. Nobody here would risk jail time over a few bucks in electricity. Still, I couldn't think of any other reason, since my project was done. Anyway, I caught the earliest flight home the next morning. When I got to the apartment, Emily was nowhere to be found. Just like she'd said. I checked the drawers. All the valuables were still there. Definitely not a burglary. I opened the closet and saw that Emily's usual clothes were gone. She really was away on business. After mulling it over, I went downstairs to talk to building management. My electricity bill is insane, I told them. Nobody's been home for 2 weeks. But I still got charged $300. Security guard, a guy with a friendly smile and these distinctive dimples, nodded at me. Sure thing, man. Let me grab the maintenance guy and we'll check it out. I LED them back upstairs to the electrical panel. One look and I knew it couldn't be a neighbor stealing power. The panel box was locked. Nobody living in a place like this would go through all that trouble to steal electricity. The electrician examined everything and shook his head. Sir, I don't see anything wrong with your electrical system. I nodded and made up some excuse. Got it. We probably just forgot to turn off the AC before we left. The dimpled guard grinned, showing those distinctive teeth. No problem, man. Just give us a call if you need anything else. Back in the apartment, I searched every room again. I still couldn't find any trace of another person. Was I losing my mind? I collapsed on the bed, exhausted. Then I heard the front door open. I jumped up, grabbed the vase from the windowsill, and hid behind the door. Was it whoever had been staying here? But then I heard the familiar sound of rolling luggage wheels. I set down the vase and looked out. It was Emily. She lit up when she saw me. Babe, you're home early. She threw her arms around me and nuzzled into my chest. I frowned. I thought your project was delayed. Emily sighed it. It kept raining in Seattle, and we were just burning through per diem sitting around. Our boss told us to come home. That made sense. Emily's company did outdoor exhibitions. Rain would shut everything down. She grinned up at me. So why are you home early? I'd never seriously suspected Emily of cheating before, but the situation was weird still. I'd checked everything and come up empty. We were both on the power company's app. She'd find out about the electricity issue eventually. Anyway, I might as well be honest. We've both been gone, but our electricity bill is crazy high. I was worried someone had gotten in. So I came back to check. Didn't want to worry you. Emily laughed. That tinkling sound I used to love. Oh my God. That's because we forgot to turn off the AC when we left. I just realized yesterday and turned it off remotely. I felt like an idiot. All that worry for nothing. That evening after dinner, something else nagged at me. I opened the router management portal and checked the connection logs. There was an unfamiliar device, an iPhone 16 Plus. My heart dropped. Someone had been in our apartment and Emily had lied about it. But how had they gotten past the smart lock? I couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went back down to building management. Different guard was on duty. This time a guy with glasses. Has anyone been to my apartment recently? Since we had the entire floor to ourselves in our building? Checking the camera feeds was easy. The guard pulled up 2 weeks of footage from our floors. Hallway camera, nothing. Not a single person. This was getting weird. Was the router glitching? I was distracted all day at work. When I got home that evening, I slumped on the couch. Emily came over with her hands behind her back grinning. What's wrong, baby? Why so sad? I tried to push her away, but she pulled out a brand new phone instead. Tata, I was going to wait until your birthday, but you've been so down lately. I wanted to cheer you up. I stared at the new iPhone in disbelief. Since we'd gotten married, this was the first time I'd ever gotten a brand new phone. Usually I just inherited Emily's old ones when she upgraded, even though we could afford it. She was always frugal about electronics. I was thrilled. This is really for me. Emily nodded. Of course. You've been working so hard lately. You deserve a treat. She kissed me on the cheek. I felt like the worst husband in the world. Emily was so good to me, and here I was suspecting her of cheating. As for the router thing, maybe a neighbor had just used our Wi-Fi. Or maybe the app was glitching. I opened the phone's packaging and powered it on, planning to transfer everything from my old phone. I went through the setup process and logged into my Apple ID. As the phone started syncing my data from iCloud, something caught my eye. In the shared albums section, there was a new album I'd never seen before. It was labeled Project Seattle. I frowned. Emily was in Seattle for work. But why would she share an album with my account? I opened it and my heart stopped. The album was empty except for 2 photos. One was taken somewhere in our complex. The other was taken inside our apartment. Second photo showed part of a man's hand. Dark skin, long fingers. Unbelievable. Emily was cheating on me. Both photos were blurry, probably taken by accident. She'd created this shared album for her affair partner, not realizing my Apple ID was automatically added as a family member. All these years I'd killed myself to provide for her, spending 2/3 of the year traveling for work. And all I got for it was a head full of horns. I shut the bedroom door and lit a cigarette, trying to calm down. Emily burst in annoyed. Marcus, are you smoking in here again? I stubbed out the cigarette and went to open the window. I would catch this bastard today. I just couldn't figure out how they bypassed the smart lock. I Googled our lock model to see if there were any known vulnerabilities. Nothing came up. I went over and started massaging Emily's shoulders. Sorry, just stressed about work. Won't happen again. Emily huffed and walked away with that attitude I used to find cute, like an annoyed kitten. Now I just saw her for what she was, a cheater. Later, I went through Emily's nightstand. I counted the condoms. 2 boxes were missing. And there was a new bottle of lube in the back of the drawer. They were really living it up that night. Emily's hands slid over to touch my ABS. I shifted away. Crazy busy at work right now. Need to sleep early. Meeting tomorrow. Emily made an irritated sound but rolled over. The next day at work, I kept watching the router portal on my phone, waiting for that iPhone 16 Plus to connect. Again. It showed up mid-morning. Perfect. He timed it for when I'd normally be at the office. I told my assistant Kevin. Family emergency, call me if anything urgent comes up. Kevin nodded. You got it, boss. I drove home like a maniac, pushing my Mercedes to the limit. A 15-minute drive took me 5 minutes. I parked and sprinted upstairs. Emily was in the kitchen wearing an apron, cooking. She only cooked at home when she wasn't traveling for work. She looked surprised to see me. What are you doing home? Did you forget something? I ignored her and tore through the bedroom, the guest room, checking behind curtains, under beds, even outside the windows. No, nothing. Just Emily. Where is he? Where's the guy? Emily followed me into the bedroom. What guy? What's going on with you? I took a deep breath. Where the hell could he be hiding? Emily looked hurt. Marcus, what is wrong with you? I was barely holding it together, shooting her an icy look, but she just kept playing innocent. carrying the food to the dining table. Is work really that bad? You seem so stressed. I made your favorite braised short ribs. I grunted. Too busy. Can't stay for lunch. This food wasn't even meant for me. Emily was obsessed with her figure. When I wasn't home, she only ate salads and grilled chicken. The short ribs were for him. As I walked past the guest bathroom, I noticed something. The toilet seat was up. Emily never left the seat up. I always put it down after using it. And there was a faint scent in the air. A woodsy cologne I'd never smelled before. I shook my head, trying to clear it. Was I imagining things now too? I went back down to building management. Did anyone come? To my apartment today. It was the dimpled guard again. He holed up the footage. We reviewed it twice. The elevator camera only showed me leaving for work. And then coming back. Nobody else. Was Emily's affair partner a ghost? I went back to work distracted and confused. At my desk, I stared at my phone trying to figure out why I'd failed to catch them. I'd come home and the guy had vanished. That meant he knew I was coming. But how? Kevin called me over quietly when I got back. Dude, you left your phone. The boss was trying to reach you and got pissed. I sighed and went to get chewed out in my boss's office. I was having a smoke break downstairs. I lied. After my lecture, I sweet-talked my boss into giving me tomorrow off. Emily had been patient today. Tomorrow she'd make her move. The next morning, I parked behind our building, eyes glued to the router app, waiting for that iPhone 16 Plus to show up. I'd catch him today, no question. But I waited all day, from dawn to dusk, nothing. I felt completely defeated. How else were they monitoring my location? The next day, I had to go back to work. The second I sat down at my desk, the iPhone 16 Plus connected. I texted our group chat. Go. Go, go. This was humiliating, but I had to deal with it. I'd called in my boys, my closest friends, and stationed them around the building. The moment I gave the signal, they'd block both my apartment door and the building entrance. Emily could track my location, but she couldn't track my friends. I raced home. I'd finally see who this bastard was. When I got to my floor, my buddies were waiting, trying to calm me down. Marcus, man. Stay cool. She's not worth losing it over. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door again. Nothing. We searched every room, just Emily. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was her affair partner actually a ghost? My friends all looked at me like I'd grown a second head, clearly thinking I'd gone crazy. As I walked past the master bathroom, I noticed the shower curtain was slightly pulled back. There was a wet towel on the floor, still damp, as if someone had just used it. And the smell, that same woodsy cologne. Stronger this time, mixed with the steam from the shower. I stared at the towel, my hands trembling. It was still warm. Emily came out in a silk robe, looking half asleep and confused. Why? Why is everyone here? My friends exchanged awkward glances. I lost it, pointing at Emily. Where is he? Where's your boyfriend? Hiding. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, what are you doing? You've been stressed lately. But you can't just accuse me of cheating. She started crying. My friends had watched Emily and me fall in love in college. They'd seen our whole relationship. Seeing her cry, they felt bad, like we'd wronged her. I stood there, surrounded by my closest friends, staring at my crying wife. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by Emily's quiet, pathetic sobs. Marcus, man. My buddy Dave said softly, putting a hand on my shoulder. You've been working crazy hours. You're exhausted. Let's just take a breath, okay? I looked at Dave, then at the others. They were shifting uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. To them, I wasn't a betrayed husband. I was a paranoid, overworked maniac who had just staged a SWAT raid on his own innocent wife. I stammered, the adrenaline draining from my body, leaving me hollow. I thought. You thought what? Emily sniffled, pulling her silk robe tighter around herself. That I was hiding a man in the cupboards? Marcus, you need help. You're losing it. I looked at her tear-streaked face. For a split second, I almost doubted myself. Was I crazy? Was the iPhone 16 Plus a glitch? Was the photo of the dark hand just a stock image left on the phone? No. The missing condoms. The new lube. The braised short ribs. The constant AC. I wasn't crazy. I was just being outplayed. I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate down. If I kept pushing now, I would lose everything, including the support of my friends. I had to pivot. I had to swallow my pride and play the game. "You're right," I whispered, rubbing my temples. I looked up, forcing my eyes to soften. "Emily, I am so sorry. I've been under so much pressure at work. The project, the travel. I haven't been sleeping. I don't know what came over me." Emily stopped crying, looking at me cautiously. "Guys, I'm sorry to drag you into this," I said, turning to my friends. "Dave, Mike, Chris. I'm an idiot. I just had a panic attack or something." They instantly relaxed, exhaling collective sighs of relief. "It's all good, bro," Mike said, clapping my back. "Stress does crazy things to a man. Take a few days off. Get some sleep." After awkward apologies, my friends filed out. When the door clicked shut, it was just Emily and me. She stood by the kitchen island, arms crossed, waiting. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her. She was stiff at first, but slowly leaned into my chest. "I'm so sorry, babe," I whispered into her hair. "I'll make an appointment with a therapist next week. I promise." "You really scared me, Marcus," she murmured. "I know. It won't happen again." And I meant it. I would never let her see me coming again. That night, lying awake next to Emily's sleeping form, my mind raced like a supercomputer. How was he doing it? I went over the facts. Fact 1. He knew exactly when I was arriving. Fact 2. He wasn't tracking my phone, because I left it at the office and he still vanished. Fact 3. He bypassed the smart lock without leaving a digital log. Fact 4. The elevator camera showed no one. If he wasn't tracking my phone, he was tracking me. Visually. Who sees me when I come home? I pull into the underground parking garage. My license plate is scanned. I walk into the lobby or take the garage elevator. The cameras. My blood ran ice cold as the puzzle pieces finally snapped together. Who has unrestricted access to the building's camera feeds? Who can see exactly when my car pulls in, giving them exactly 3 minutes to escape before I reach the penthouse? Who has the physical master keys that bypass electronic smart locks without logging an entry? The security guard. The guy with the friendly smile. The distinctive dimples. The distinctive teeth. I thought back to the blurry photo on the used iPhone Emily gave me. A man's hand. Dark skin. Long fingers. The dimpled guard was a dark-skinned guy. His name tag, what was it? Julian. Julian. The guy who so helpfully checked my electrical panel. The guy who reviewed the elevator footage with me and assured me no one was there. Of course, the elevator camera showed nothing. He wasn't taking the main elevator. We had the entire top floor to ourselves. There was a heavy, fireproof door in our private foyer that led to the emergency stairwell. Julian had a master key. He could slip out our front door, lock it with the key, and walk down the stairs to a lower floor while I was coming up the elevator. And the 2 weeks Emily and I were away? The insane electricity bill? Julian didn't just break in for a quick hookup. While Emily and I were both out of town, Julian had literally moved in. He had treated my luxury apartment like his own personal resort. Ball rose in my throat. I wanted to wake Emily up and scream in her face. But I needed undeniable, bulletproof evidence. I needed to catch them red-handed in a way that neither of them could deny, and I needed to destroy them legally. The next day, I didn't go to work. I told Emily I was taking a mental health day. She seemed a little tense about it, constantly texting on her phone, but she played the supportive wife. When she went to the gym downstairs, I went to work. I drove to an electronics store 2 towns over. I paid in cash. I bought 3 high-end, motion-activated, battery-operated spy cameras. They didn't connect to Wi-Fi. I couldn't trust my router anymore. They recorded directly to hidden micro-SD cards. I got back to the apartment an hour before Emily returned. I hid the first camera in the living room, disguised inside a fake potted plant I placed on the bookshelf. It had a perfect view of the front door and the kitchen. I hid the second camera in the bedroom, mounted behind the ventilation grill of the central AC. The third camera I placed in the private hallway outside our front door, tucked inside the housing of the emergency sprinkler head, pointing directly at the stairwell door. Then I booked a flight. When Emily came out of the shower, I was packing a suitcase. "What's going on?" she asked, drying her hair. "Work," I sighed, putting on my best stressed husband face. I know I said I'd take time off, but the Seattle project is falling apart again. They need me on site. I fly out tonight. I'll be gone for 3 days. I saw the micro-expression flash across her face. It was relief. Pure, unadulterated joy, masked instantly by a fake pout. "Oh, baby, that sucks. Are you sure you're up for it?" "I have to be," I said, zipping the bag. I kissed her goodbye, took the elevator down, and walked past the security desk. Julian was on duty. "Heading out again, Mr. Vance?" Julian asked, flashing those signature dimples. "Yeah, Julian. Duty calls. Be gone for a few days. Keep an eye on the place for me, will you?" "You got it, sir. Have a safe flight." I drove to the airport, parked in the long-term lot, and walked into the terminal. I even swiped my credit card at an airport coffee shop to leave a paper trail. But I didn't get on a plane. Instead, I rented a car with cash, drove back to my city, and checked into a cheap motel 2 miles from my apartment. Then, the waiting began. For 24 hours, I sat in that dingy motel room. I couldn't see the live feed since the cameras were offline, so I had to be patient. It was agonizing. Every horrible scenario played out in my head. On the evening of the second day, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed the footage. I waited until 3 a.m. I knew Julian's shift ended at midnight. I drove my rental car back to my neighborhood, parking 3 blocks away. I wore a black hoodie, a baseball cap, and a medical mask. I bypassed the front entrance entirely. I picked the lock on the alleyway service door, a skill I'd learned from a buddy years ago and never thought I'd use. I slipped into the emergency stairwell and climbed 15 flights of stairs in the dark. When I reached my floor, I carefully retrieved the SD card from the hallway sprinkler cam. I slipped into my apartment using my own physical key, moving like a ghost. I swapped the SD cards in the living room and bedroom cameras, replacing them with fresh ones. Emily was dead asleep in our bed. I could smell the faint, lingering scent of men's cologne in the air. Not mine. I slipped out, walked back down 15 flights of stairs, and drove back to the motel. I plugged the SD cards into my laptop. My hands were shaking. I opened the first file. The living room camera. Timestamp, 8:15 p.m., the night I left. The video showed Emily wearing a sheer black dress I had bought her for our anniversary. She was pouring 2 glasses of wine. A moment later, the front door opened. No smart lock chime. Just the physical click of the deadbolt. In walked Julian. He wasn't in his security uniform. He was wearing my bathrobe. The one Emily got me for Christmas. I felt physically sick, but I couldn't look away. Julian walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, kissing her neck. He bought it. Julian's voice came through the audio, deep and arrogant. Hook, line, and sinker, Emily laughed. That tinkling laugh I used to love. Now it sounded like scraping metal. He literally apologized to me in front of his friends. He thinks he's losing his mind. Julian chuckled, taking a sip of wine. I gotta admit, he had me sweating for a second when he rushed the building. Good thing I was watching the garage cam. I barely had time to throw my clothes on and hit the stairs. "You need to be more careful," Emily scolded playfully. "Leaving your old phone on the router? Really? Hey, I wiped it. How was I supposed to know Apple ID lingers if you don't factory reset it right? Besides, you're the one who gave it to him. Because he was getting suspicious." Emily snapped back. I had to distract him. Buying him a new phone made me look like the perfect wife. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's so guilt-tripped now, he'll never suspect a thing. I paused the video. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, my vision blurring with rage. They were treating my life, my sanity, like a joke. I clicked to the next video file. The bedroom camera. I won't describe what I saw. I fast-forwarded through the physical betrayal, the anger burning away the last of my heartbreak, leaving only cold, hard steel behind. But it was the audio after they finished that changed the game. They were lying in my bed. Julian was smoking a cigarette, the smell Emily had yelled at me for a few days ago. So, what's the timeline? Julian asked, staring at the ceiling. Soon, Emily said, resting her head on his chest. His company goes public next quarter. Once his stock options vest, I'll file for divorce. With the emotional abuse angle I'm setting up, him bringing his friends to scream at me, his erratic behavior, my lawyer says I can take the apartment, half his assets, and permanent alimony. And if he fights it? Emily traced a finger down Julian's chest. Let him. I've been secretly recording him every time he gets angry or raises his voice. I'm building a domestic disturbance case. By the time I'm done, he'll be lucky if he doesn't end up with a restraining order. We just need to ride it out for 3 more months. Julian grinned, flashing his dimples. 3 months. Then we take this penthouse, sell it, and buy that place in Miami. Exactly, baby. I slammed the laptop shut. They weren't just cheating. They were orchestrating my financial and social ruin. Emily was gaslighting me, trying to build a fake history of abuse so she could steal the life I built for us. I sat in the dark motel room, the glow of the streetlights filtering through the blinds. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was hyper-focused. They wanted a war? They picked the wrong guy. The next morning, I didn't go home. I made a phone call to a man named Arthur Vance, my uncle. He also happened to be one of the most ruthless corporate litigation and divorce attorneys in the state. I drove to his office. I put the laptop on his desk and played the videos. Uncle Arthur sat back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. His expression was completely unreadable. When the video finished, he looked at me. Marcus, I've seen a lot of ugly things in 30 years of law, Arthur said quietly. But this is particularly vile. What do you want to do? I want to destroy them, I said, my voice dead calm. I want her with nothing. And I want him in a cell. Arthur nodded slowly. The infidelity gives us grounds for an at-fault divorce, which protects your assets. But the premeditated fraud, plotting to fabricate domestic abuse to manipulate a settlement? That's extortion. As for the guard, Julian, he's using his position to bypass security, enter your private residence, and consume your resources. That's criminal trespass, breaking and entering, and arguably burglary since he's stealing your electricity and food. Can we prove it? With this footage? Yes. But we need to catch them live. If we just show the video, Julian might flee, and Emily will claim it was a one-time mistake and try to settle. We need the police to walk in on them. We need a police report documenting his illegal entry. Arthur laid out a plan. It was brilliant. It was airtight. And it was going to happen tonight. At 4 p.m., I sent Emily a text, flight delayed. Weather in Seattle is crazy. Won't be back until tomorrow night. Miss you. She replied instantly, oh no. So sorry, baby. Get some rest. Love you. I drove to the police precinct closest to my apartment. Armed with my Uncle Arthur, who carried immense weight in the city, and the video footage from the night before, we spoke to a detective. We explained the situation. A building employee was using his master keys to illegally enter my home while my wife was there. But Uncle Arthur didn't stop there. He laid out the bigger picture. Julian had unrestricted access to every single unit in the building. He was a predator using his position to bypass security systems. This wasn't just about my apartment, it was a massive public safety threat. A security guard with master keys who felt entitled to enter any resident's home at will. That was a serial burglar waiting to happen. Arthur had already drafted a formal complaint citing gross negligence and criminal conspiracy by building management and systemic security breach endangering all residents. The property management company could face millions in liability if this went public. The detective's expression changed instantly. This wasn't just a domestic dispute anymore, it was a potential headline-making scandal. He agreed to authorize a discreet dispatch immediately. 2 plainclothes officers would accompany me to the building. At 9 p.m., I pulled up to a side street near Riverside Estates. The 2 undercover cops were in an unmarked car behind me. I pulled out my phone and checked the router app. I had left the router untouched, knowing Julian would connect his iPhone 16 Plus as soon as he got comfortable. At 9:15 p.m., the device popped up on the network. He was in. I signaled the officers. We walked toward the building, bypassing the front lobby. I led them to the alleyway service entrance. I unlocked it, and we entered the stairwell. He monitors the security cameras at the front desk from his phone, I whispered to the officers. If we take the elevator, he'll see us coming and run. We have to walk up 15 flights of stairs. The officers were breathing heavily by the time we reached the penthouse landing, but they remained dead silent. I stood in front of the heavy fire door leading to my private foyer. I pulled out my phone and connected to the hidden hallway camera via a Bluetooth tether I had set up earlier that day. I checked the live feed. The hallway was empty. Julian was inside. I looked at the officers. They nodded, hands ready on their holsters. I put my key into the smart lock. I didn't use the keypad, I used the physical keyhole. I turned it slowly. Click. I pushed the door open. Soft jazz was playing from the living room. The smell of expensive steaks cooking filled the air. I stepped into the entryway, the officers right behind me. We moved silently down the hall. As we approached the kitchen, I heard Julian laughing. I'm telling you, we should sell his wine collection before you file the papers, Julian was saying. He doesn't even drink the good stuff. We can't be too obvious, Emily replied. But I did transfer $5,000 from the joint account to my personal one today. He won't notice. He never looks at the ledger. I stepped around the corner. They were sitting at the kitchen island. Julian was wearing my silk pajama pants. Emily was in a bathrobe. Actually, I said, my voice echoing loudly in the apartment, I check the ledger every day. Emily dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the marble floor. Julian leaped off the bar stool, his eyes wide with panic. He immediately looked toward the front door, assessing his escape route. But then the 2 police officers stepped out from behind me. Police. Hands in the air. Do not move, the lead officer commanded, his hand on his holster. Emily let out a blood-curdling scream, backing against the counter, clutching her robe. Julian froze, his hands slowly rising in the air. Marcus. Emily shrieked, tears instantly streaming down her face. Marcus, thank God. He broke in. He forced his way in here. I actually laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. Julian stared at her in shock. What the hell, Em? You crazy bitch, you invited me. Shut up. Emily screamed at him, playing the victim with Oscar-worthy desperation. She looked at the officers. He's the security guard. He used his master key. He threatened me. That's a fascinating story, Emily, I said, pulling my laptop from my backpack and setting it on the counter. I hit a button and the audio from last night's recording began playing loudly through the laptop speakers. 3 months. Then we take this penthouse, sell it, and buy that place in Miami. Exactly, baby. Emily's face drained of all color. She looked like a ghost. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Julian, I said, looking at the man who had slept in my bed and eaten my food. You're under arrest for breaking and entering. And Emily? You're being served with divorce papers tomorrow morning. Oh, and by the way, my uncle is Arthur Vance. You're getting nothing. The officers moved in. They grabbed Julian, shoving him against the wall and slapping handcuffs on his wrists. Hey man, wait. It's not a crime to sleep with someone's wife. Julian panicked, struggling against the cuffs. No, the officer said, reading him his rights. But using an employer's master key to trespass in a private residence, bypass security systems, and steal property is a felony. Let's go. As they marched Julian toward the door, Emily collapsed to her knees on the shattered glass of her wine. She didn't even seem to feel the cuts. She crawled toward me, grabbing my pant leg. Marcus, please, please. We can fix this. I was confused. He manipulated me, she sobbed, her makeup running down her face in black streaks. I looked down at her. All the love I had felt for her over the last 8 years was gone, replaced by absolute disgust. You forgot to turn off the AC, Emily, I said quietly. She looked up at me, confused, trembling. Pack your bags, I told her. You have 10 minutes to get out of my apartment before I have these officers arrest you for financial fraud and embezzlement of the $5,000 you just admitted to stealing. The aftermath was brutal, efficient, and deeply satisfying. Julian lost his job instantly. The property management company, terrified of a massive lawsuit from my uncle, completely cooperated. They handed over all digital logs and fired Julian's supervisor for negligence. Julian pleaded guilty to trespassing and burglary to avoid a longer sentence, but he still got 18 months in a state facility. Emily tried to fight the divorce, but Uncle Arthur decimated her lawyer in the first mediation session. Faced with the recordings of her conspiring to commit fraud and fabricate domestic abuse, her lawyer advised her to take what she could get and run. What she got was exactly nothing. The prenuptial agreement we had signed, which she had laughed off at the time as a formality, had an infidelity clause. Because we caught them in the act, and because of the criminal nature of Julian's entry, she forfeited her right to the penthouse, my stock options, and any alimony. The last time I saw her was in the courthouse lobby. She looked exhausted, wearing cheap clothes, a far cry from the pampered luxury she had enjoyed on my dime. She tried to catch my eye, to give me one last pitiful look. I walked right past her, didn't even break my stride. A month later, I sold the penthouse. It held too many toxic memories. I bought a sleek, modern house in the hills, surrounded by nature, far away from the city noise and prying security cameras. I invited Dave, Mike, and Chris over for a barbecue. When I had finally shown them the video evidence of what Emily had been doing, they were mortified. They apologized profusely for thinking I was crazy. Sitting on my new deck, drinking an ice-cold beer and watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my new, highly encrypted smart home system. Front gate opened. Recognized user, Kevin, assistant. A minute later, Kevin walked onto the deck, carrying a box of premium cigars. Hey, boss, Kevin grinned. Brought the good stuff to celebrate the quarterly earnings. Company stock is through the roof. Thanks, Kev, I smiled, taking a cigar. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the laughter of my friends. For a long time, the high electricity bill and the phantom iPhone had felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But as I lit the cigar and exhaled the smoke into the evening air, I realized something. That past-due electricity bill was the best thing that ever happened to me. It didn't just expose the darkness in my home, it bought me my freedom.